Okay, quick bites with Sir Anthony, and today we're gonna look at Anthony, the famous story of the witch at Endor. So this is the story of King Saul goes to a witch, a what's it called, a magician. They're called mediums and magicians. There, there's First Samuel 28. And he wants to inquire certain things from the dead Samuel, the prophet. And it says that he encounters this woman at Endor. This was a place. And then, let's see, it says here, Saul swore on an oath to her by the Lord. As surely as the Lord lives, you will not incur guilt in this matter. Because so Saul knew what he was doing was not allowed by his God, Yahweh, who banned this sort of stuff. This is the dark arts, as it's known today. The witch, the woman replied, "Who is it that I should bring up for you?" He said, "Bring me Samuel." So apparently she did.
Yes.
Verse 12, the woman saw Samuel. She cried out. The woman said, "Why have you deceived me? You are Saul." So, sorry, by the way, Saul was in disguise. She didn't know he was the king.
That's right.
And he says, "Don't be afraid. What have you seen?" So he cannot see, Saul cannot see what the witch is seeing. And then she says, "I have seen one like a god or an Elohim coming up from the ground." And then she describes this Elohim, that's the Hebrew for God, as Samuel. So a lot of people, Anthony, use this as a proof text that when you die, you either go to heaven or to hell. What do you want to say about that?
Well, first of all, of course, this was an embodied person. So the idea popular in Christianity is that when you die, you disappear either to heaven or to a subterranean area to be tortured, but it's in a disembodied state, I stress, without a body. What was seen here was an embodied person, so it doesn't work for that system at all. The most likely explanation of this very sinister event, and the whole atmosphere shrouded in mystery, and Saul is being very secretive, and a witch is not the person you consult if you want to know something. So the consulting of the dead Samuel was forbidden by the Torah anyway. You don't consult the dead. The pagans do that. So what happened here was not permitted under the law of Moses. And so I think what we're seeing here is the devil's capacity to impersonate others. And he was able to produce this apparition called a god, and that's what you would call it, I suppose. But it was an embodied person, and it pretended to be the dead Samuel coming alive again. Very unlikely, I would think, that God permitted the actual Samuel to emerge embodied from the Sheol, that's the place where all the dead are, and appear. That's most unlikely. It's been argued by some. Much more likely is the fact that this was an impersonation of the dead Samuel. And there he is, God, a demon, appearing as Samuel. And what does that demon then say in the story? Can you recall for us?
The demon goes on to give a prophecy that turns out to be true, I believe.
Okay.
He says, "Why have you disturbed me?"
Yes.
Saul says, "I am troubled. The Philistines are fighting against me, and God has turned away from me." And Samuel, the supposed Samuel, says, "Why are you asking me now that the Lord has turned away from you and has become your enemy?"
Yes.
The Lord has done exactly as I prophesied. The Lord has torn the kingdom from your hand, has given it to your neighbor David.
Yes, it's a very central key passage, a watershed episode here, where the kingdom is being removed from the wicked king and given to David, which is a wonderful messianic prophecy too, waiting for the kingdom to be given to Jesus ultimately. And so I think that confirms the fact that Saul was not answered by God at all. God allowed, of course, God is the one who permits evil, including an evil fallen angel called Satan, who fell into condemnation, 1 Timothy 3, he was punished and will be punished. He fell into condemnation. So God has allowed evil at two levels. In the supernatural realm, there are angels who sinned, and in the human sphere, of course, there are human beings who sin. That's within God's permission. He uses that evil for his own good, to bring good for many people by testing them. I see that. But most likely then, this is a lying spirit. And Saul then gets what he deserves. He gets a confirmation of his evil beliefs. That's what Satan can do. Once you give up on the truth, God can give you over to a spirit of deception. You wind up not believing the truth, but believing the lie.
Right, and it's also notable that in the Theological Dictionary of the Old Testament, they do admit that it's a non-human or supernatural being that is probably a demon. So
absolutely. Yeah, the whole doctrine of Satan is involved here. Very important. There is the Satan with the article. You can be a Satan to someone else. Human beings can be adversaries to each other. That's quite different. Hasatan, the devil, the Satan, who is said to be the serpent in Genesis, quite clearly. Serpent then is a code word for the devil. He is a force to be reckoned with. He's the God of this present age.
Right, and the story here, Anthony, just to wrap this up, is quite scary because a spirit and an angel, in this case a fallen angel, what we would call a demon, can impersonate people, family members,
of course,
friends. So we have to be careful when we hear stories about, oh, I saw my uncle, Bob.
Oh, you're talking about after so-called after
death.
Oh, of course.
So
that's a huge huge show on the part of the devil to convince people that the dead are alive. Very dangerous. When you're dead, you're actually dead. The dead know nothing at all.
Right.
Resurrection, finish with this, is the only way out of death into life. Daniel 12, verse 2.
Yeah, I think Christians tend to forget that signs and wonders and miracles are not only original to God. There is a power, a prince of the power of the earth that enacts signs, wonders, and miracles, and that's Paul in.
And that's the anti-Christian figure, the man of sin, the abomination of desolation, the little horn of chapter 7 of Daniel, chapter 8, the final wicked person, chapter 9 of Daniel. Signs and lying wonders. Paul really lays it on thick in 2 Thessalonians 2, verses 1 through 12. Fascinating passage of Scripture.